you need a grappling hook? Are you going swinging from, skyscraper to skyscraper? So
right.
I wanted to make sure that she had the ability to change. And she also has a whole lot of pockets, which I think is essential.
It's perfect. And she has to stay ready so she doesn't have to get ready.
Exactly.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Costume podcast. I am your host, Spencer Williams, and thank you so much for joining me for another extra special bonus episode. What's going on, costume nerds? It's good to be talking with you all. It's been a little while since we had a bonus episode, but it's been a busy summer over here for us at the Art of Costume podcast. Lots of great things coming up. Lots of interviews that we've done recently. Lots of great articles on theartofcostume.com. Daniel and I have been working on our YouTube, which I really hope you'll go check out and subscribe to. And also, I just graduated, so that was kind of fun. Had a good time. Got to walk across the stage, get my diploma, do that sort of thing. But everything's kind of calmed down now, and it's back to work because we got things to do. But speaking of, if you want to get me a graduation gift, why don't you head on over to Apple Podcast and leave us a 5-star text review and let us know what you think of the podcast, because that really does help, and that'd make me smile, and Elizabeth and Daniel would totally be thrilled about that also. So why not give it a shot? But today's episode is not about me. It is about a fantastic show, which I got to watch last year, Gotham Knights, a series that I absolutely loved. It takes place in Gotham City, so of course I'm obsessed with it. I think the Batman universe is fantastic, and Gotham Knights is nothing short of that. But before we get too deep into it, let's go behind the costumes and start with a summary. Batman is dead, and a powder cake has ignited Gotham City without the Dark Knight to protect it. In the wake of Bruce Wayne's murder, his adopted son, Turner Hayes, is framed for his killing. With the charismatic and hard-charging District Attorney Harvey Dent and a Gotham City Police Department hot on his trail, Turner must rely on allies, including his best friend and formidable coder, Stephanie Brown, and unlikely Batman sidekick, Carrie Kelly. However, they soon learn there is a larger, more nefarious force at work within Gotham City. This team of mismatched fugitives must band together to become its next generation of saviors, known as the Gotham Knights. That's Gotham Knights. Let's go behind the costumes. The series showrunners were Chad Fivash and James Patrick Stodero. The costume design for the pilot was by costume designer Natalie Brofman, and the rest of the episodes were designed by my dear friend, Jennifer May Nickel. I absolutely love Jennifer. She's become such a friend. We met last year, and she has just been there for all of us here at the Art of Costume as we learn and grow, and just been such a supporter. And yeah, I just absolutely love her. And also, she just had a birthday too. So shout out to you, Jennifer. Happy birthday. You will know Jennifer for some of her notable work, such as What Just Happened, Containment, Legacies, Sexpectations, Taylor Tomlinson, Look at You. That is one of her comedy specials, which I think is absolutely hilarious. I've seen it many times. And The Cabin with Bert Kreischer. Jennifer works with Bert Kreischer, and I'm a big fan of his. She's hilarious. He's hilarious. It's just my favorite duo. But I'm quite taken with this show. It has such a fantastic crew and cast, and being Jennifer's friend, she actually has introduced me to the lovely showrunners, Chad and James, and also even Anna, who played Stephanie Brown in the series. They're all magnificent. In this interview, we're going to get into all the different characters, from Turner to Carrie, Harper, Colin, to Harvey Dent, played by Misha Collins. We also get into the sinister Court of Owls, and we even talked about the fact that Jennifer is quite literally canon in Gotham now, which is absolutely brilliant. You're going to have to stay tuned and listen in on what I mean by that. And also, Jennifer and I might have a very exciting announcement coming soon. So Yeah. You'll just have to listen out, maybe look toward what's happening at San Diego Comic-Con, and maybe ways that you could hang out with me and Jennifer, but stay tuned for that. I hope you'll enjoy this episode, this interview. Jennifer has so many great things to share, and we're going to have a good time.
Hi, this is Dan, audio engineer of the podcast, here to let you know that if you wanted to support the show, you can head over to theartofcostume.com/podstore. There you can buy some awesome TeePublic merch with the podcast logo, such as a shirt, coffee mug, stickers, and of course, a baby onesie. Thanks for all your support.
To introduce my friend, costume designer Jennifer May Nickel. Hey, Jennifer.
Hi, Spencer. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you. I was happy to meet you not too long ago, and immediately I was like, we have to do an interview or a podcast. So
yeah, you're good at it. So
oh, I thank you. But first, I want to start by learning a little bit more about you. I did a bit of stalking, light stalking. You hold an MFA in costume design from Carnegie Mellon University. You studied in England at Oxford University. I was just like, wow. So I just had to ask you, why costume design? Why are you in this field? What drew you to it?
Ever since I was little, I've always been like drawing clothes. It's just the first thing that I took to artistically. And I've always loved like theater, film, television, and I didn't quite know that it was a field that I could actually have a career in and a job in until I got into undergrad school. And my professors were like seeing my drawings on the side of my notebook and stuff. And they were like, you could be a costume designer. I was like, wait, what? That's the thing. So they were like, why don't you just give it a try? Like, let's do it for one of these short plays and see if you like it and how you feel and go from there. And I fell in love with it right away. It was like everything clicked in place. It was like when you find your soulmate, career-wise. And it was the thing of I wanted to stay up all night sewing and draping and designing and painting and everything. And it was just everything I had ever wanted. And then turned out I was, decent at it. And so they were like, you should apply for grad school so that you can learn more, because our department didn't really have a costume design department. They ended up just kind of catering to help me grow and learn. But yeah, they suggested grad school. So I went to Carnegie Mellon and honed it all in from there.
Well, I will say you're not just decent at it, you are brilliant at it, which is why I'm so excited to dive into the new show, Gotham Knights on CW. I'm so excited to dive into Gotham Knights. Admittedly, I'm not as well versed in DC characters as I am in Marvel. However, I think there's a universal love for Batman and, Gotham City. And I feel like you and I both kind of share nerdy qualities in the sense that we love this world. We love comics. So how does it feel to be designing costumes that carry that legacy of that Batman related property?
It is just one of the coolest feelings in the world. It still gives me goosebumps when I think about it. I realized yesterday when I was chatting with one of the showrunners, it's actually a year ago yesterday since I interviewed for the job.
Wow.
Yeah.
That happened quickly.
Thank you. And it was just when I was putting together the presentation and stuff for the interview, I was doing some sketches for it and everything, and I was like, holy cow, even if I don't get the job, I'm having the opportunity to design for Robin. Like, how amazing is that? And so it was just, I definitely have a reverence towards the world a lot. And I've been a huge Batman fan all my life. And so it's just been really quite lovely that I get to be a part of it now.
Yeah, that's so exciting. We'll get into it later as well, but you get to design for characters such as Robin or Harvey Dent, characters that we've, watched through decades and different iterations. So that's so exciting. I mean, that's kind of the dream, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been my dream to design Robin in Two-Face, and I got to do it. So,
and to make it even more cool, you are now canon in the Gotham universe as being a haute couture fashion designer as May Nickel. This was so cool. When I saw this, I was like, wow. I interview a lot of costume designers, but not an actual designer from Gotham City. So what was that like?
That was just the best thing ever. Like, I don't know if I've ever been more proud of myself that way. And also my husband too. Like, just the fact that now I'm canon in the DCU as a designer is really kind of awesome.
It's so cool. And it's such a great look, too. So you really made your entrance into as one of Gotham's top premier designers.
Thank you.
Quite well. So what I love about Gotham in general is the darkness to it. It's a popular city, but has a edge to it. And I love seeing the various versions that, creators have done with it. For example, Matt Reeves, the Batman, was a bit more sinister and grimy. The Dark Knight, which, I love, by Christopher Nolan, was a bit more contemporary, and the Tim Burton films are very campy and kooky and over the top. So how did you prepare in terms of developing the sort of look for Gotham that you were going for?
Visually, it was really kind of amazing how we were just all on the same page very early on in the process of the look. When I got the lookbooks from the production designers and the DP, and it was very much in line of what I'd already been thinking, what the showrunners had been conveying. And so we were all visually kind of in that same place of a little Art Deco, a little Blade Runner, a little, the Dark Knight, the Nolan things, with still the grit and grime of the Matt Reeves Batman, but that we wanted to keep everything a bit more grounded in reality, but it's still our own unique Gotham. It's our own unique take on it that still pays homage to the others.
Right. It definitely has a little bit of an edge to it, but it still has a little bit of a sophistication to it. So let's get into some of our favorite characters, starting with Turner Hayes, Bruce Wayne's adopted son. I feel like you can see a lot of that classic Bruce Wayne dress in this character, but you still got to add a little bit of a punk to it. So what was your concept behind this character?
So for Turner, because he was adopted by Batman after his parents were killed, that there is this sense of privilege to him now because he's had Bruce Wayne's wealth, but in the moment in our show, since Batman is dead and he is now a fugitive, he doesn't have access to the power and wealth. And so part of him is in a place of reverting a little more towards his past and who he used to be before he was Bruce Wayne's son. So he starts to dress a little bit more like his actual parents and the way he dressed before Bruce Wayne was in his life. And so it's just that like subtle taking it back and then also creating a bit of creature comforts for him so that he doesn't change a lot clothing wise. Like he has his staple pieces that it's his comfort blanket that he wears, especially his jackets. Like he always has to have his jacket on because the thing like that makes him feel safe.
It's a good jacket.
And And it's going back to some of those classic lines, especially for him. All of our Gotham, we tried to create a universal sense of timelessness. There's vintage elements throughout the show and throughout different characters at different times. And his tends to take on more of like a 1940s and 50s like worker kind of style. And you haven't gotten there, but in episode 109, you get to meet Turner's parents in a way.
Ooh.
And so it hopefully, I think, pays off to the audience of, okay, now you get to see where Turner's style has come from, where the simplicity of his clothes, but it has a classic feel to it at the same time. You can feel the little bits of vintage in there.
Oh, fascinating. Such a fun character. And honestly, I think favorite in terms of costumes. I feel like I see a lot of my future wardrobes looking a lot like Turner.
It's a lot of Todd Snyder.
Yeah. Oh, nice to know. Probably shocking to no one listening to this podcast. My favorite character was Duela, the daughter of the Joker. I love her style. It's very punk. I also see like Blade Runner influences in it. And I also believe that she has a comic book background. So tell me about bringing this character into live action.
So with her comic book background, she has such a rich character, and it is a twisted character. She's the Joker's daughter. So, but in her way of kind of doing that, she would mess up her face in the comic books as a way of making herself look beautiful and paying tribute to her dad, the Joker.
Ooh.
And so we weren't, necessarily going to be doing that on our show.
Take a step back a little bit.
Because it definitely gets very gruesome in the comics, depending on which one you're reading. And but I wanted to find a way of honoring that also within her character. And it was a great place to go within her clothes, is that she just, any iteration of clothing that she inevitably has stolen from somewhere, she kind of funks it up in her own way. And something that might, the average consumer would find beautiful as it is, she goes and makes it her own. And so she could she would steal a $5,000 jacket and then tear holes in it and add safety pins and, just do spray paint it up and all of that. So anything that she wears, she's stolen it. And then we called it Duelified it. It's her nervous tick in a way. We see her as like an insomniac who, while everyone else is sleeping, since she's also a fugitive and can't really do too much, she's like stealing the other like students' clothes from school and funking them up and making them her own, and doing all the cool funky things to it, like her, as you have in the photo there, her little Gotham City jacket.
Oh, that's such a great jacket, by the way. I fell in love with it.
Thank you. So there's definitely, it's like there's a lot of Duela in me, and then like also a lot of Harper in me. And my husband and I joked of like, I dress like Harper on the average, but if I could always dress like Duela, I probably would.
I feel like that's probably true for most of us. She is the coolest. But the Gotham Knights would not be complete without Robin, who you mentioned is someone you want to work with. I love this look because it has a more practical take on the classic Robin look. He's not wearing tight spandex and a mask. But there's still elements to it that say Robin to me, like the colors, for example. Mm-hmm. So what was your approach to designing the Robin character?
So we all wanted to make sure that she felt grounded and real in our universe, like that she's not just popping up in a superhero suit, because it's not exactly right where she is. Batman took her, under his wing, but he was teaching her. She wasn't really supposed to be fully out there fighting crime and acting as a vigilante. He was showing her the ropes, but she didn't quite have all the tools yet. And in episode 2, you kind of see her, taking a few of the tools from Wayne Tower. So, she is something to fight with, but we wanted it to feel like this is, a teenage girl who is secretly, quietly doing all of this. She doesn't have resources to, she doesn't have Lucius Fox making all of this for her.
Yeah.
So
we're making it work.
Yeah. Like making it feel real to her character, her practicality, making it form and function at the same time, but something that you can also believe a teenager would have put together themselves. And Carrie as a character and then Navia as a person, they're both like very practical. And I really wanted to lean into that for this of her costume is something that can be molded for any need that Robin has, and that every episode she can change out what pouches she's wearing. She can change out what weapons she has on, both her utility belt and her bandolier. And she is ready for whatever fight. It's a difference between fighting the mutants and fighting a Talon. There's different things that you need for each situation. Do you need a grappling hook? Are you going swinging from, skyscraper to skyscraper? So
right.
I wanted to make sure that she had the ability to change. And she also has a whole lot of pockets, which I think is essential.
It's perfect. And she has to stay ready so she doesn't have to get ready.
Exactly. And that's exactly, what's behind her look.
Yeah, I love it. Probably one of my favorite characters. I would love to talk about the Rose siblings, starting with Harper, another badass character.
Yes.
Also with an edgy style that also feels like we could see it, in modern day 2023, perhaps. Mm-hmm. So what was your approach to this?
Harper is, like from the comics, my favorite of the Knights.
Ooh, okay.
Because she fights for the underdog. And it was actually something I mentioned in my interview for the job. The way she fights for and protects Colin, it's something that I really admire. And I was always the one in grade school standing up to the bullies for my friends. Mm-hmm. And it was something that, like, in her arc, I just absolutely love. And I love that she's a mechanic and an engineer, and that she just has this cool style that's edgy, but also, again, functional and practical, because she knows she's going to get dirty. She doesn't need to be wearing like something frilly. She is more comfortable in a coverall, ready to go. So that's one of the things I love about her, adding the funky style into that too.
So since you see some of yourself in some of these characters and costumes, would you say that there was a collaborative process between you and the actors who are bringing these costumes to life?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it's always a collaboration with everybody. And, with these characters, because of both their comic background, but then also we're still in our own unique world. It was a discussion of, okay, what elements do we want to keep? What are you bringing to the plate? Like, we don't want to do a literal translation of it. We want to keep the homage to the comic book characters, but how are we pushing it forward into our Gotham and the things that we all feel? And
interesting.
So with Harper, it was keeping the elements of the coveralls and practicality, but also adding in a little more color, a little more funkiness, showing a little more of an edge where she's not necessarily the t-shirt kind of gal. She often is in the comic books, but we do add the elements in there, here and there when it works.
Yeah, have a bit of fun with it.
Yeah.
I love Cullen's costumes. They're the most relatable. I can see myself in Cullen's costumes. What was the inspiration? It feels very, like I said, modern, relatable, looking at some of your mood boards you put together.
Yeah. I would say, is actually the closest to the comic book character in the beginning, because his arc on our show is a little bit different than in the comics at that moment. But it's starting where he, as a fugitive and a trans man, is a little more hesitant to be seen. And so he's a little more inward, covered, not quite as in your face as maybe some of the other characters like Duela is.
Graphic tees, sometimes a little bit baggier fits.
Yes, exactly. Having the layers on too. And then we slowly throughout the season start to change his clothing to be more fitted, more growing into the role of both being a superhero as well as wanting to be seen. And so he gets, prouder of himself and his growth and who he is as the season goes on, because he's a Gotham Knight and he starts to own it. And we really push that once his character starts to get there, which is kind of right after you're where you stopped.
Oh, okay. So I still have a little bit of a journey. I'm excited.
And it just builds throughout the season.
Perhaps there's nothing creepier than a masked cult, especially when they're guarded by a large assassin named the Talon. So tell me about the Court of Owls and the Talon, because when I was looking at it, I was like, ooh, this is fun costuming, very scary. And I think what's kind of creepy about too is that they're clearly establishment characters and the very proper suiting, which makes it creepier, honestly.
Yes. Yes. They are my favorite mass group of villains in the Gotham world. I love that comic series. It is one of my absolute favorites.
I gotta get it.
So when I heard that the show was going to highlight that, I was like, oh, please, I really want to be able to do this. It's just they're just so creepy and in the comics. And so to be able to bring that to life on screen was definitely one of the most fun things I got to do. My team and I worked very hard on it. And it's one of those cool things where this is really where we got to bring a lot of the vintage elements into the show and help it give even more of that timeless vibe that I've been talking about. We dress the court members themselves in a more lighter palette than a lot of the rest of the show. They're a bit more austere and pristine. You can tell they're rich from the and it is that generational wealth that I really kind of tried to dig into clothing wise for them. Because in Gotham, the Court of Owls has been around for, centuries. And these people have inherited their position in the court from, their grandfather's grandfather. And it was essential to me to really hone in on that and show that they're that different kind of upper crust than some of the other wealthy of Gotham are. And so creating the owly color palette that you see on screen, it was very important, using creams, metallics, softer browns, things of that nature, light grays, tweeds, everything that just feels old and creepy.
Yeah, it's fascinating that, using a brighter color palette on these characters is what made them creepier, because they stood out, against the rest of Gotham, which you're like, I don't want to hang out with these people.
Yeah. Their clothing is clean, whereas, when you get down to the bottom, Duela, she's very gritty.
Right.
So I like showing the difference of that. And then with the masks, it was fun getting to design those.
They're so cool.
I wanted it to have the feeling of the statues in the Haunted Mansion. If you go on the ride and they're the busts that the eyes just follow you, no matter what position you're in. Yeah. that's how I wanted the masks to feel. And I felt like I felt it when I was there on set. But, and it's a centimeter of a difference on the way the eyes are. It just changes everything. And it was a fun process with the showrunners and our co-creator of showing them, okay, this is just the slightest move, and this is how it takes it more sinister, and keeping the brow furrowed and keeping the cheekbone arched and all of that, like all of the little things that keep it looking like an owl, but also that it could be, a mask that is around 150 years old. So
yeah, very spooky. But even spookier perhaps is when the Talon smashes into the scene. What a creepy character who had a really interesting suit too, and looking at the mask and the different textiles and fabrics that were in this suit. So how did this piece come together?
I have to say, I loved designing him so much. And it's just going to always be one of my favorite things, because there's just such a richness to the Talon and such an extra creepiness to him with that weirdo mask,
Yeah, I feel like I wouldn't have a good time with him.
Yeah. It's like you just know that he's gonna like funk some things up, and you got to be careful. So one of the first things we started with idea wise was looking at the Talons from the comic books, also looking at the Talon that is actually in the Gotham Knights game, which we as our own world have nothing to do with it.
Right.
We're not a part of that, but the Talon does happen to be in there, and it's a cool one. And so looking at the different Talons that have existed, but then applying what we liked into our own universe. And with this Talon, he is, because we're really leaning into the vintage aspect of the court, I wanted to lean into that aspect for him too, because you'll find out in the series that this guy has been around for a while.
Ooh.
And so he's had this Talon costume for quite some time, and there are gold elements throughout him that I always thought of as being a conductive property, since metal's conductive. And the gold is something that helps keep him warm and alive and
interesting.
And so it's like everything to him also has that purpose, but it has the visual scariness at the same time that the court does, because you'll learn more about the Talon as the rest of the season goes on, but he does have someone designed him, and he has a reason for a lot of what's going on there. But because he's a bit of a nightmare and a legend, like, does the Talon exist? He's a thing of children's nursery rhymes. So he has to have that visually like, I don't know what that is, but I don't want to go near it,
Yeah. Yeah, that's an understatement.
Yeah. And so keeping his hood, having that executioner's hood feeling to it was important to the showrunners. All of the Talon's various blades that he uses on his victims, keeping those close and at the ready was important. And then having the elements of showing the Court of Owls, like on his gauntlet, we have the Court of Owls face embossed into the leather. And so it's showing those little elements that kind of just ties everything together. And he too is a very functional sign of the blades at the ready of every shape and kind. And one of the things that I actually really love the most about his costume is we engineered that his katana blades actually disappear behind his cape. So when he puts his blades away, you see the very top of the katana sheaths but they disappear underneath the cape beautifully. And so it helps keep that creepiness of the cape going too.
So it's functional, practical, and fashionable.
Yes.
The
Would I
talent
have
has
it any
all.
other way?
Well, I hope we get to see this costume in a museum or something soon, because it is so cool. I love it.
I love it. We mixed like 6 or 7 different leathers together. We had 4 different fabrics in addition to those leathers. It was a whole lot of awesomeness. And I found a really great stretch pleather that, well, it's more like a vinyl, but it had a Goyard style tee in it that I loved. And so I was like, well, this is just perfect for the talent. A lot of fun.
Like, how perfectly creepy.
Yeah.
There were a lot of large scenes that had many background actors, especially when we were at Gotham Academy or the gala that we were talking about. So talk to me about your team and how you all work together to, bring together all these scenes, because it's a lot of costumes.
It's a lot of costumes. And, with the first year show, it's a lot of run and gun too, because you're figuring all of it out as you go. Nothing's really been established quite yet. And so you're really trying to figure out the world, the sets and everything, and under a TV timeline, which, as you know, is very fast. So it was a lot of work, but so much fun in the way of, again, because the production designer, the DPs, the showrunner, the co-creator, and our producing director, we all were really on a good cohesive page from the beginning, that it made the process, go a bit easier than maybe other people might experience on other shows. Our showrunners were just fantastic in the way of communication, very clear on what their thoughts and expectations were, and really loved everybody else's enthusiasm too. Like, we were all just so excited to be getting to play in the world of Gotham, and they were too, and we all embraced it together. And so working with the production designer and set decorator, my team and I just really gelled with them very well. And we had a great line of communication where I would send them my mood boards of what I was thinking, tones, colors, and everything along that line. And they would send me back what they were thinking too. And 9.9 times out of 10, we were already on the same page, which just made it so easy and wonderful. And so
that's so cool.
Yes. Which was great. And then with my team, so Marisa, my assistant costume designer, and I would start with building the boards. And then because there were so many boards, sometimes our key costumer would also join in and helping with the boards to gather everything in the images and bringing together the color palettes. I have never done such intense color palette boards as I have on this show because of the different delineations we were really trying to show between the court wealthy, which is the generational wealth, the new wealth of Gotham, and then the average Gothamite, and then the low street level Gothamite. And so we had all those different color schemes going on, as well as bringing in all of the vintage elements to it. With our academy, we are keeping it. It's a bit, has that like English kind of feel to it for the academy. And, for the most part, like with Natalie's beautiful costume design for the pilot, we kept that, but then we also brought in the plaid that is actually in the comics for Gotham Academy. So bringing that like little nod in there, and then adding like the different elements of ties and all of that, because we wanted to make sure there was a good range, not knowing how much we'd be seeing the academy. And we wanted to keep it that we could kind of utilize all the different uniform options
Right.
But keeping the tight color palette of blacks, cool grays, cool blues, and golds and silvers. And so just keeping that all together, but creating a nice pristine mix that looks like, they went to Eton.
Well, it really came out beautifully. It's such an expansive world, and it really speaks to the talent of your team and everyone having to work together and being in that same mindset, going through all these crazy different scenes. We only have 2 questions here. We're wrapping up. Thank you for posting so much on your Instagram, by the way. It really helps.
Well, my team worked so hard on this. Like, we all had such a love and commitment to the show that I really wanted to celebrate it. And so there's even more to come. Like, I've been busy in the last few weeks, but I'm starting to get back into the role of posting again.
Right. I mean, it's like a full-time job.
It is.
Well, Harvey Dent is a character that appears from time to time in Batman properties. Everyone knows Harvey Dent, Two-Face. So this must have been an exciting character to costume just for you entering this world. It's Harvey Dent. So this must have been exciting.
It was. I mean, Harvey Dent is one of my absolute favorite characters to begin with.
Nice.
And that we were, loosely taking elements from The Long Halloween, which is that's my favorite Batman comic.
Ooh.
So I was just super duper excited to be getting to work on Harvey, but, the grounded Harvey, as we might say. Like, Misha's already said out of the press, he's like, not Tommy, not his Harvey.
Right. That's a bit more campy.
Yeah. And we're not that. Like, we have fun elements to it, but he is real and grounded. And it's, we have the nods to the mental instability that he has going on, but we're not going in a cartoonish kind of way.
Right. That's so cool. I'm so happy for you. It's so cool that you got to be a part of this.
Yeah, I very much had a lot of fun, especially with his character of getting into the subtle details of Two-Face and Harvey and helping to slowly show the split that goes on throughout the season, and having just a sophisticated way of telling it where his tie knots get more and more complicated and more unhinged as the season goes on. And, he's wearing different accessories that show two tones to it and, having 2 patterns.
Ooh, that's fun. Little
fighting
notes.
each other. And so there's a lot of subtle, cool elements of bringing that in. And you see him start to get a bit more colorful as the season goes on too, instead of just staying in the navy blues kind of tone. To see more teals coming into play and more purples coming into play. And we get to go in a really fun place. And I have to say, the coolest thing is the Two-Face costume to come, because I ended up, because of the nature of television and everything, it ended up being me turning it into the Two-Face stuff over a weekend at my place in Atlanta.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I can't wait for that.
It's one of my babies, let me tell you.
That's so cool. Well, I mean, just talking about all this, I'm just so excited. Clearly, this was something you're very passionate about. So as we wrap up, I want to ask you, what did this project mean to you, looking back at just this wild project that clearly meant so much to you?
It truly meant everything to me. It is still, I mean, here we are a year later, and I just can't say enough about how much I loved it. I loved it not just because of the world of Batman that we got to live in, which that alone would have done it for me. But my amazing, amazing crew that I love so very much. We put all of our hearts and souls into the show, and the fact that, even though it's a crazy first year schedule, they kept showing up and showing out for me. They kept believing in my designs and, wanting to make this the best they could possibly make it, even, when everyone is exhausted from lack of sleep and TV hours.
Right.
It wouldn't look this great without them. So.
Well, just like these characters being on a run, your team was also on the run the entire time. So
yeah. And our actors, it has been the best group of actors that I have gotten to work with. Truly, like the guest stars even coming in, everybody was just so lovely, so collaborative, and such a just joyful place to be. And it came from the showrunners down. It was just a wonderful show. And while we were all exhausted, we all love it.
I am so happy for you. Costume designer Jennifer May Nickel, thank you so much for joining. This has been such a great conversation. I'm just so happy for you. This is so great. And it's such a great show. And I hope everyone continues to tune in and check out all these brilliant costumes.
Thank you.
The Art of Costume podcast is hosted and produced by Elizabeth Joy Glass and Spencer Williams. Our audio engineering and editing is done by Dan White. Follow us on TikTok at The Art of Costume and Instagram at The Art of Costume Pod. If you want to support the show, go to theartofcostume.com/podstore. For more podcast updates, costume reviews, deep dives, and interviews, go to theartofcostume.com, a blog dedicated to highlighting the best in costume design.